Hey everybody. So, in a prior video, I had mentioned the idea that if I was riding the ship at Lucasfilm, the first thing I would do is fish George's treatments for 7, 8, and 9, turn them into 10, 11, 12. So I thought it would be a fun little mental exercise to go through how I would adapt those to follow the sequel trilogy that we got. So, in order to do that, first we have to go through kind of what we know of those treatments, which isn't really a whole lot. But we're going to kind of parse out some things. So, first, we know that George wanted to have an overarching metaphor for the Iraq War fallout. So, you were going to have the Imperial remnants that were going to be kind of the Ba'athist fighters that were still loyal to Saddam and were just fighting. They weren't giving up. You had criminal element trying to fill the void as well. And we know in George's treatments that the criminal syndicates were going to be run by Darth Maul and Darth Talon. And they were going to unify with the Imperial remnant, and that was going to be a metaphor for ISIS. Leia was going to be Supreme Chancellor, trying to hold everything together. Luke was going to isolate out, just focused on reviving the Jedi and creating a new Jedi Order. We know that at a point that was going to fall. Luke was going to go into exile. And we aren't clear if he was going to come back and fight or if he was going to get killed at some point and come back as a Force ghost to help our hero, which we knew was going to be a girl. I've seen Taryn and Kira as names there, and that we were also going to see a son of Solo fall and be seduced to the dark side by Darth Talon. So now that we have that kind of laid out, we have to place our sequel trilogy characters in these places. Why? Because Leia's dead, Han's dead, Luke's dead. So, never mind the real world intruding on it with Carrie Fisher's passing. Those characters are gone. At most, we can have Luke as a Force ghost coming in to kind of help advise Rey a bit. So, with where we start here, Rey is probably the easiest. She slots into the Luke role, trying to start up the new Jedi Order. For the Supreme Chancellor role, we're going to put Poe in that place, because his arc in the sequels kind of leads and lends itself into being kind of Leia's replacement. Like he's being groomed for that leader spot. So he's pretty easy to slot in there. Finn's the hardest because we don't know in what we know of George's treatments where Han or Lando is. So, in my mind, because we know from things that have been said that it's implied that Finn is Force sensitive. So, when we start the new movie, he's going to be at Rey's side. He's going to be a fully formed Jedi at this point and be kind of a confidant, friend, and advisor to Rey. So now our table's kind of set. The only people we really don't know where they are is, at this point is Chewie, R2-D2, C-3PO, and BB-8. We don't really know either. Now we can imagine that BB-8 is probably with Poe. We would imagine C-3PO would probably be with Poe. I would put R2-D2 and Chewie with Rey. And so all our players for the most part are set. Now there are certain things we can't do from the treatments because they were already done in the sequel trilogy. We can't have the Jedi completely fall and Rey go off into exile because that happened with Luke. But we can have them get beat pretty badly. We can kind of remix that a little. We also can't do the fall of the Son of Solo because we got that with Kylo Ren and Ben Solo. So that's out. But we can still have somebody fall. So there we're really kind of shaping things. So the first movie, what is that going to be? The first movie is where we just kind of set the scene and lead into our first big kind of catastrophe. So what we set up, we maybe start with a battle, Imperial remnants versus New Republic. New Republic are kind of getting their ass handed to them. Poe puts in the call to Rey, trying to coax the Jedi to help, and this is where we learn that maybe Rey has been kind of isolating them, because part of the lessons that she took from Luke from Last Jedi was how the Jedi had entrenched themselves so hard into this militaristic role during the Clone Wars that they were blinded to see the rise of Sidious and do anything about it. So she is really stepping back from that. And this is where we can maybe have some moments with Luke, and Luke kind of being like, look, that was maybe kind of a mistake on my part, you know. Maybe there's a better balance we can work there, because, you know, Luke, having isolated himself, really kind of left the door open for the First Order. He's kind of seen that since, you know, then, and is maybe trying to get her a little more involved, and she's like, nope, like, we're focused on this. Finn is just kind of her, you know, since Rey trained Finn, he's more aligned with her on this. Now, this is where we would introduce the two younger characters, the boy who would end up falling and being seduced to the dark side, and then the girl who is going to be your kind of light, your hero in this. So that's kind of the starting point. Now, by the end of it, we're going to see the fall of the male student, and knowing that George wanted to kind of lean into this Iraq war metaphor, you really gotta, if we're really going there, we could go into the way that a lot of these kind of radicalization movements take place by taking disaffected young men, you know, giving them a promise of women, things like that. So knowing that he is going to be seduced literally and figuratively to the dark side by Darth Talon, then this is kind of their final piece of the puzzle. Because in my mind, if we're going there, we don't want to really kind of lean into the whole rule of two things. I think at this point, Darth Maul would be pretty against that, knowing how well that turned out for him. So he's fully on board with Darth Talon going out and pulling in any kind of force-sensitive young man and radicalizing them to the dark side. So the goal is shifted there. It's not just, you know, okay, order two. It's Darth Maul going, no, get as many as you can, but I'm on top. So by the end of this movie, that's where we land, is with him turning full on to the dark side. Now, how do we get there? So since we aren't doing a Son of Solo type thing here, what we can do is have this kind of likable but maybe awkward, you know, maybe he's a little off and he's enamored with Rey, and Rey, maintaining the teacher-student relationship, rebuffs him. Now obviously it's got to be done in a very kind and likable way, and we have to make sure that he maintains likability so that when he does fall, when he is seduced by Darth Talon, we're like, no, don't. So we have to make sure to walk a fine line here to make sure he stays likable during this part of this film. And then he turns. He goes at Rey. Now, knowing that John Boyega is iffy on coming back to Star Wars, we need to make sure he has a good, just kind of meaty role here. And this is where, you know, my pitch here is when this kid falls, he comes back, he goes at Rey, they're fighting, Finn steps in, he sacrifices himself to save Rey. Rey, you know, with all the like anger and hurt of seeing Finn get killed, comes at this kid, and at this point she takes him out. In a way, it's kind of a that George Lucas likes to make things rhyme. In a way, it's kind of a parallel to Duel of the Fates from Episode 1, except for it's the student, in a way, that falls, leaving the master to go at the Sith. At this point, that's where this ends, and we move into the second movie, which is going to start with Darth Maul and Darth Talon making their big move on the Jedi. It starts with the destruction of the Jedi Temple. And instead of it being a thing where they're all wiped out and Rey goes off on her own, like we was alluded to with Luke in the sequel trilogy, she gets out with a fair amount of her Jedi students, including our female protagonist, who is going to go off with her. So they get away. They go off to lick their wounds. Meanwhile, the New Republic is really on their heels. They're getting their asses handed to them. So this is, because the middle's got to be our darkest part. This has got to be where everything seems like hope is lost. So by the end of the second movie, Darth Maul seems triumphant. He seats himself at the seat of power on Coruscant. He is taking the mantle of Emperor. He has won by the end of it. Now, off in the distance, Rey is licking her wounds. Maybe Luke's trying to coax her back into the battle. And we can do something neat here. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with some of these movies that are already in play. But I think this would be an interesting thing, because even in the kind of new Jedi Order movie that they say is coming, you see a lot of people speculating, well, maybe Grogu will be there, maybe this, So we could lean into that and basically have Grogu show up. But he's not, just your tried and true Jedi. He's there with a group of Mandalorian Jedi that he himself has been training off on Mandalore and has decided to come enter the fight. And he brings his guys with him, and he can be kind of this really kind of catalyst to really show Rey the balance you can build, because that's going to be Grogu's kind of whole thing. He can, even speak to like, well, when I went to go train with Luke, he was holding on to the, no attachments thing. Like, I have a family out here. I'm all about like attachments and balance and things like that. And he can, balancing, the warrior ethic of Mandalore and the light and the balance of the Jedi. So he can be basically come in to kind of rally everybody back together. During this time, Rey has taken the Kira or Terran, whatever name they want to give her, trained and leveled her up, and she is now her, Rey's right hand. And that's where we kind of get ready to end the second movie. Darth Maul's triumphant. Poe, I don't think we kill him, but he's captured, he's what have you. Maybe he's awaiting execution. So we start that third movie with Rey and all the Jedi coming in to rescue Poe and take out Darth Maul and Darth Talon. And that's what the third movie builds to. You can almost make it a espionage war movie. Part of it is them going in to rescue Poe, and then you have all these battles going on with Republic fighters fighting alongside Mandalorian Jedi and regular Jedi, and they're all fighting, and we can maybe see that Darth Maul has amassed a small kind of fighting force of dark Jedi, or Sith acolytes or whatever you want to call them. So you can have this big, kind of Clone Wars style epic battle that's going on throughout this movie. And then, of course, it ending with the defeat of Darth Maul, Darth Talon, and the restoring of the Republic. And, that's a basic structure you could put together that would tie everything into a nice, neat little bow. The only thing that we really only know very few threads of that would need to be threaded through this would be whatever George wanted to do with the kind of micro world. He was going to dive deep into midichlorians. But since all we know is a want on that, and that's a hard one to kind of figure out what he wanted to do with that. I heard rumblings that he wanted to do Sith ghosts, but again, I don't even know where you would even put that. The only thing I could think of is that you could do some scenes early on with Darth Maul where maybe he's communing with the Force Ghost of Revan, where he's learning that the rule of two is kind of BS, even more so kind of grounding his commitment to just amassing as many Sith as he can. So you could maybe go there, maybe do some World Between Worlds stuff where Rey communes with Anakin. You could do some stuff there in the second movie. But since we really don't know, personally for me, I would prefer you go weird as possible, bring the Bendu back, do some stuff with the Wills, go out there with it, but without seeing the treatments directly. Wouldn't really know what to do with it. So that's my take on it. That's kind of the basic kind of ideas of how I would kind of structure things. Are they going to do anything with it? Hard telling. We'll see where the new Jedi Order movie lines up, because who knows, maybe they are leaning into some of that, but I don't know. We'll see. But, that's just kind of my basic idea of kind of how I would adapt those. See you in the next video.